Good evening, everybody. Night number 10 here, and page number 15 and inner work. Avodat Hashem. Our souls come to this world with the specific purpose of attaining spiritual elevation. Our souls come to this world with the specific purpose of attaining spiritual elevation. Therefore, we are here to work on ourselves spiritually day and night. We are here to work on ourselves spiritually day and night. Pretty straightforward, not much commentary needed. Our souls are here to attain spiritual elevation. We are here to awaken, to spiritually awaken. Therefore, we're here to work on ourselves day and night, spiritually work on ourselves day and night, which is challenging, especially when you live in the world and you have a family, you have a job, you have responsibilities, you have relationships. And they're, to attain this, to actualize this teaching, to get to a place inside where we understand that this is the purpose of our being here. And thus, we're here to work on ourselves spiritually day and night. Is a process. It's a step-by-step and day-by-day process. Hopefully, through study, it begins to sink in more. We'll get to that shortly, I think. When we make an effort to go in the direction of giving, an impression is made in our consciousness that elevates us in the direction of giving. When we make an effort to go in the direction of giving, an impression is made in our consciousness that elevates us in the direction of giving. When we go in the direction of our desire to receive, then an impression is made in our consciousness affecting us in that way. There's also a collective consciousness of humanity that is affected telepathically by every person's inner state. Wow, I bet you didn't know that was in Judaism. So, clearly, simply, when we make efforts to give, impressions are made in the direction of giving. When we make and we follow the direction to desire to receive, then impressions are made in our consciousness that affect us in that way. What does it mean an impression is made in our consciousness? It's the Indian term samskara, right? When we grooves, right? When we create habit patterns in the brain. So they're like grooves, right? And in the Eastern tradition, these grooves are the pathways that we walk all the time. And so they become familiar and they become mechanical and they become default. And in order to heal and in order to awaken and to transform ourselves, we need to acknowledge and recognize those grooves. Also, I call them like train tracks. And we need to start to fill in the grooves and start to lay track in a new direction, right? So when we start to practice giving, we're basically laying new track in the direction of giving. We're creating new habit patterns in the brain that that are aligned in the direction of giving, and thus in the direction of loving God and loving others. But when we continue to lay track and deepen grooves in our consciousness towards receiving, then it just deepens the habit patterns in the brain to go towards receiving. And then this last line, which is so interesting, there's also collective consciousness of humanity that is affected telepathically by every person's inner state. So it's basically saying there's a collective consciousness of humanity, and each person impacts that collective consciousness, right? So if we're all vibrating on a certain level, when a person in an elevated state, or in a person who's in a state of giving or unity consciousness comes in, they're vibrating, their vibration impacts the other vibrations around them. And same in the other way. If a person comes in, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your life, when people are just moving around in a normal way, and someone comes in really angry and brings in an angry vibration in their consciousness, it also comes in and it stirs up the energy in the room, and it impacts the collective consciousness. So love this teaching on collective consciousness. Next, the more we progress in our spiritual work of loving others, the more we experience God, right? It's very straightforward. The more we progress in our spiritual work of loving others, the more we experience God, right? There's obviously, through this teaching, direct correlation with loving others and giving to others and experiencing God. Which is clear, right? Because the actual act of loving another in this way, in the spiritual work way that we're talking about, is directly opening to God, right? It's the same movement. Loving another is by seeing the God in them, seeing the divinity in them, how they are expressions and extensions of the divine, and thus, when we see that, we are in effect experiencing God. Page 16. The true purpose of our life is to connect with God. The true purpose of our life is to connect with God. This is the teaching of the Kabbalah. So straightforward, so direct. The true purpose of our life is to connect to God. That is why we are here. We're here to connect to God, to connect to the divinity in all of creation and all of existence, the sacredness that runs throughout all of existence. Every single thing here is an extension of the divine. And we are here. The purpose of our human life is to connect to the divine. Period. The spiritual work of loving other people is not focused on people's external aspects, but rather on the divine aspect, the aspect of God within each person. Just what I said a minute ago, basically. The spiritual work of loving other people is not focused on people's external aspects. It's not focused on what they do. It's not focused on how they look. It's not focused on anything to do with the masks we wear or the identities we don and express in our day-to-day lives. Rather, it's the divine aspect. The divine aspect. Not the external aspect, the divine aspect, the aspect of God within each person. And each person is an extension of the divine. We are all sacred beings on a sacred planet, in a sacred existence, a mysterious mystery of life. Nothing is ordinary. Nothing is ever ordinary. Life is completely extraordinary in all moments, always. It's our eyes that need to adjust to that reality because they've been in the grooves and the samskaras, the habit patterns of seeing life as normal, seeing life as everyday or mundane, seeing everything around us as objects that we recognize, that we give names to, that we identify with words. Maybe another time we'll go into the allegory of the cave, Plato's allegory of the cave, but that is exactly what also it's talking about. We give names to the shadows on the wall. We think they're real. We think that they are reality, but in fact, they're just shadows of the light. The light is the true source that is giving, is animating them. Just like a film, the light through the projector casts images, and we think the images are real, but really it's the light that is animating them, that is giving them life, that is what is real at the core of it all. And we're here to experience that light and to be that light, to become awakened to the light within ourselves and to allow that to be what expresses itself in the world, that we can speak as that, from that, and see others and relate to them from that, as their divine aspect, as the extension of the divine, the aspect of God within each person. Final sentence here: by connecting with the right people, we can attain inner transformation and develop spiritually. Right? So again, kind of connected with earlier teachings about finding, the right teacher or people who are connected to the divine, or writings that are connected to the divine, like this one that we're reading. By connecting with the right people, or the right or the right teachings, which he says in other places, we can attain inner transformation and develop spiritually, right? As we make contact with those who are connected with the divine, or writings that come from people who are connected to the divine, that helps us, that assists us in our own transformation. That's why people seek out gurus, for example, because when they're in the presence of a person who is awakened, or, so-called awakened, that vibration helps to transform our own inner vibration, right? If you see a holy person who sees God and sees the God in you, right? You get a hit, you get a feeling, an experience of like, oh wow, there is another way to be on this planet. There's something deeper. There's more to it than what I see in my day-to-day mundane life, running around in the world, moving from place to place. And that starts to activate a transformation inside, and then it's our job to continue to follow that and to develop upon that, and do the work to transform ourselves and our consciousness. Okay, lots of love. Have a good night.